Robert Carlock, co-creator of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix. We watched the first season here in the first part of this year, and I'm guessing you're already working on season 2?
We are. Yeah, we started writing in May, actually. So we're about to start shooting in 2 weeks. First table read, reading 2 episodes this week. So we've been at it for a little bit, and so it's been fun to get back into it. And we ended the first season with a bunch of some cliffhangers and some new information, and for all of our characters, it's been fun to pick it up and run with it.
Well, I'm going to try to pry some secrets out of you later in the interview,
Okay.
but let's talk about Emmy Awards first. The show is up for Best Comedy Series. Jane is up. Tituss is up. John Hamm, Tina Fey. As you watched the reaction to the show back in the early part of the year, and then you were waiting on nominations in July, did you have certain expectations, or what were your thoughts?
I think it's hard to have expectations, especially as crowded as the comedy field is right now. I mean, there's so many good shows, and there's so many different kinds of shows too. And when you look at the nominated shows, it's the range of what people have to kind of absorb as half hours and as comedies is incredible. So look, we didn't have any expectations. I think we knew that we felt like we were doing good work. We knew we had a great cast. And it was very gratifying to get some recognition, to be in that conversation with those other shows.
Well, and especially Best Comedy Series. That is, you've been there before. You've won 3 times for 30 Rock. In fact, as I was thinking this through, there's only 2 shows in the last 8 years that have won. 30 Rock won 3 in a row, and then Modern Family has won 5 in a row. So if you're able to do that, you take the crown back.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I certainly won't expect that, but I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, in the last 8 years, it's only been 2 shows. I think change is in the wind.
Could be. Let's talk about this cast a little bit. I had the good fortune of interviewing Ellie a few weeks ago, and she is just as nice as you would think she is. I hope you say the same thing about her. Why was she the perfect person to lead this show?
Well, she was pitched to us as someone, and we'd always liked her, and the show was written for her and around her, and so it's almost, okay, why is this show right for Ellie as much as why was she right for that casting? I think she has a unique combination of a kind of projects a certain openness and innocence, and at the same time projects strength and intensity, and you don't see that much. It's a strange combination, I think, and there's a lot more going on than it first meets the eye. Every idea that we thought of for her just took us to weird and dark places, because we just felt like it was fun to kind of scratch the surface with her, and she's so funny and so great to work with, and really disturbingly nice person. I don't know what her parents did, but she's the best, and the show wouldn't work without her. I have a hard time thinking of other people who could do the balancing act that she does in that character.
Well, I think the whole show is a balancing act, because it's a premise that, in the wrong hands or with the wrong tone even, it would come off too odd or too hard to watch maybe, but I think you strike the right tone there. I think that's a combination of course, the writing and the plots, but also her. Talk a little bit about just setting the tone for the show. Yeah,
the first draft that Tina and I wrote was actually, really was a process to get there, of course, even once we felt it was a process to find the people who communicated. The first draft that we wrote was much darker. Rhythmically, it was less like a sitcom, and I think we felt rightly, just as a starting place, we wanted to be as respectful as possible to the idea of what this woman had gone through, while still trying to write it as a comedy in terms of how she moves forward and in terms of her outlook and her worldview. And it sort of took us a little while and some, pushing and prodding as well from NBC and Universal, kind of embrace the comedy of it. It was definitely a process, and finding the right musical tone as well. And I tend to think that in some ways that those opening titles and that song and the way that that song, you know, was a kind of a viral video within the universe of the show and beyond that, I suppose, really helped us get our heads around, okay, I know what this is visually, and it sounds right, and you get that it has the right sensibility, and it has a sense of humor, and yet it's still about the premise of the show. And that was a nice, helpful key to kind of help us sort of unlock what that tone could be.
Well, I think also it was very smart to, you know, set it up, jump right into New York and say, okay, audience, we're going to take you back through some flashbacks to show you what happened over the course of the whole first season.
Yeah. Sorry, a little of that dropped out. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying, I think it was very smart on the pilot to jump right into New York and then go back over time, over the course of the first season, to do flashbacks and show you what had happened to get to that point.
Yeah, you know, we often talked about her as a Disney princess, and we start with her waking up, and then what's life beyond that? You know, when you go through it, really bad things happen to the Disney princesses. Their voices get stolen, and they get put to sleep for thousands of years, and their stepmothers are always trying to kill them. And in our minds, in some ways, this was, all right, well, our heroine is the princess, and what happens when she wakes up? And we didn't want to. What would be the fun of watching a show of her in the dungeon? Let's get to New York as fast as we can and start our life and revisit that other stuff in hindsight rather than living in it.
Tituss Burgess nominated for an Emmy Award. You had worked with him a little bit on 30 Rock, but I think from the large part of the audience, this is the first time we've seen him in anything big. What does he bring to the show?
You know, everything. It's kind of amazing. Really, you know, we created a character named Tituss and made him audition for it. But without totally knowing everything that he could do, and we knew that number 2 on the call sheet needed to be able to help Ellie hold up, you know, what she was trying to pull off with this character, and to give room for the emotional stuff, and to be able to hit the jokes and be able to hit his marks. And I'd say the only thing he wasn't able to do on day one was hit his marks consistently. It was sort of the first real single camera work he had done. But he learned all of that stuff very quickly as well, all those skills. I think that there's nothing he can't do, which, you know, you don't know when you cast someone. You say, all right, well, that guy was on 30 Rock for probably a total of 5 lines and he got 5 laughs. That's great. Can you do the rest of it? Can you be number 2? And I think a very high degree of difficulty performance you know, opposite Ellie as the sort of helpmeet and as the sounding board and as the friend and as a source of both comfort and frustration for your main character. In some ways, you know, it's at least as important a role. You know, otherwise it's just a monologue. And he's so fun to write for. He's just got every single tool, and it's very nice, I think, that he was nominated.
As you have somebody like that, you say, you know, you don't know exactly what you got when you first start. Do you find, as you're writing over the course of a season, and you are learning an actor's strengths and so forth, do you find yourself playing to that as a writer?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you're always poking at, especially in a first season of something, poking at, okay, is this the kind of joke that this person can do? And in larger ways, here's a combination of characters we haven't tried, and what is the chemistry there? What kinds of stories can you tell? I mean, it took us basically the whole season to get a story with Lillian, Carol Kane's character, and Jacqueline, Jane Krakowski's character. But we knew, okay, we should put those 2 women have such different worldviews, such different points of view. We got to find a way to get them together. So you're always doing those kinds of experimenting, both on a joke level and a story level.
Jane Krakowski, you just mentioned, nominated several times for 30 Rock. You'd worked with her all those years. How do you take somebody like that? You know her strengths, you know what she does really, really well, but you want to use some of those strengths, but you also want to make a new character.
Right. And I think that's a very good question. Our starting place was very simply that Jenna, her character on 30 Rock, and look, there is a fair amount of overlap in the Venn diagram of Jacqueline and Jenna. They're both a little status obsessed, style obsessed, self-obsessed. But Jenna really never, unless it was about her, usually her appearance, really never tapped into anything like real emotion. I think that whenever we had to tell a story about Jenna experiencing something in life, it had to be through this weird lens of her own self-absorption. Whereas what we were really excited about doing with Jacqueline, and the main way in which from go she was different to us, was that this was someone who actually cared what other people thought and actually wanted to improve herself as a person and wanted to make herself and her family and her friends happy, and even if she didn't have all the tools to do it. And I think the scene in the second episode, which I believe Jane used as her submission, where she kind of breaks down with Ellie and talks about her failing marriage, and that Kimmy is her best friend in the world, having known her for a day, was just a great performance from her, and a use of a drawer in her toolbox that she never got to use on 30 Rock. So that was the sort of starting principle, and then hopefully, it allows you to expand from there, because she's another performer who can give you everything, and not just all those hard jokes and singing. She'll never get to sing on this show, probably. I'll have to work on that.
Maybe somewhere along the way, Jenna meets Jacqueline. They're both in New York somewhere.
Season 10, I guess, yeah.
Right when you're running out of ideas toward the end.
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about, we mentioned John Hamm and Tina Fey are nominated. You had a lot of guest stars nominated, and I remember Tim Conway won for 30 Rock.
Yeah, the Elaine one was, yeah.
Right. You use guest stars so well. Is there anybody coming up in this second season that you can give us a little sneak peek on?
Oh, that's well, no one is booked. I mean, there's some characters we are looking forward to casting. A sort of in another, when Jacqueline ultimately is going to come back to New York with various grand intentions for her own ongoing self-realization, and one character, this other kind of Upper East Side alpha mom kind of character whom we were just starting to talk about casting, but nothing booked yet. We're hoping to meet Kimmy's mom or some other members of her family along the way, but it's too early to have locked anyone in. We certainly have our dreams in mind, but I'm not gonna jinx us.
Well, I'm glad that I guess I wanted to ask about Netflix, and you had all of those years on NBC where you're doing the traditional, one episode a week. You've got your typical pipeline, and here, all the episodes roll out at once. Was there any difference in the way that you put this season together as opposed to what you used to do on 30 Rock?
Meaning season one?
Season one of Kimmy, was there any, knowing that they were all going to be all released on the same day and that you had to have them all finished at the same time,
right.
Was there any difference in the way that you wrote it and produced it?
Not really. I think that it was kind of from its inception a different kind of show, just from its premise. And we wrote towards that premise. So at the end of the day, it felt like a place like Netflix is where it belonged. And we always had gone into, even when we were thinking of it for broadcast, we had gone into those 13 thinking, well, 13 often I find in a 22 episode season, when you're around 12, 13, 14, you've completed some big arc for the characters, and then you tend to kind of try to launch something else for the back 8 or 9. And so we went into those 13 thinking, all right, well, we want to have a certain shape from released into the world to some kind of step towards closure for her. And that became the trial and sort of confronting the Reverend and John's amazing performance. So it ultimately felt like it just fit into the, okay, because to me, to try to answer your question, when you do get all those episodes at once, it's nice when they have a continuity and a connectedness and a larger narrative. And this show certainly lent itself to that, because the premise kind of is on top of everything. It's hard to tell a story that is absolutely separate from the main character's central experience. So it really felt not different from what we wanted the show to be when we thought it was going to be on broadcast, if that answers the question. But the show is certainly very different from 30 Rock in that character has such a strong point of view and such a unique backstory.
What about from a reaction standpoint? When you've got a weekly broadcast show,
yeah,
you can't help but all of you, gauge the reactions from the critics and the audience and so forth from the industry as it's happening along the way. But when you're on Netflix or Amazon or one of these streaming services, you're obviously being released all at the same time. Was there any, from the behind the scenes standpoint, was there any difference or shockingly different reaction internally from having it all come out at once, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I'm going into it. That was something that we were very accustomed to, is that kind of ability to make little course corrections depending on what you choose to hear or what you choose to listen to. I mean, any kind of feedback is helpful, and it just increases our responsibility to try to be our own harshest critics. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that we're planning to do in season 2 that in a network schedule in a 22 episode season we would have gotten to, you end up having this with 13 episodes, a little more of a bullion cube of what the show is, and then a little less of the space that you have in a 22 episode season to tell all the stories that you want to tell. And that maybe those are things, if you'd had immediate feedback and a larger conversation, outside your own bubble, as much as you try to project your brain outside your own bubble, those are things that maybe we would have gotten to sooner, just in terms of growing characters like Tituss so that was a little bit of a challenge, because that's what we were used to. It's very nice to be able to live in our writer bubble and make our little show, but we are making it for people, and we've always kind of, without being overwhelmed by it, because you can be, if you're really trying to follow everything that's being said, okay, what's working outside of our expectations, outside of the room, what's working in the, for our audience. So yeah, it was definitely a change, but now we get another 13 to try to absorb all of that and do it all over again.
You said you're just about to start shooting the second season. Will it pick up right where season 1 left off?
Yes and no. We're doing a little jumping around time-wise, but generally, yeah, we left season 1 with some loose threads, which I always like to do, just to give you a kind of push at the beginning of a year. So we are going to pick up with Kimmy and the repercussions of her relationship kind of coming undone while she was away, and Tituss, the revelation that he is actually still married to a woman back in Mississippi, and Jacqueline kind of pursuing her attempt to become a fuller person, and all of that.
Yeah, we didn't mention this before we started recording, but I'm sitting here in Mississippi, and I believe you've got her coming from what, Chickasaw County?
I think Tituss was from Chickasaw County.
Yeah, that's the next county over for me.
Oh, really?
Not in a good way. I hope nobody in Chickasaw County is watching, but I believe it's one of the more rural counties here in our state.
Yeah, that's what we were trying for with our limited sense of life in Mississippi. Tituss is himself, the actor, is from Georgia, but we wanted to bury him down in Faulkner country.
There you go. Well, listen, good luck. I guess second season, same kind of timeline as first in terms of premiering?
Unclear. I think we finished shooting in January of 2016. 2016? Well, it is technically 2016. 2016. And would hope to be, out in the coming months after we edit and do all that stuff. So I hope so. But that'll be up to Netflix, I guess.
Right, right. Well, listen, looking forward to that. Good luck at the Emmys. So glad that you got so many nominations, and we'll see if we can help you pick up some wins there this time.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for all your hard work. We love the site, and thanks for having me on.